this is true. This is going to be a great thing. And once this catches hold, and people can find out and hear what's going on here, in the next couple of years, you won't have enough. And that's what it's going to take with all of us and these churches. Of course, Reverend Cheney, he's got a team in a ball team, you know. Of course, we at Pastors Conference, we're supporting, sponsoring of a young ball team. But it's going to take all of us to make this, to get our children orientated that, hey, there are some positive things right here in our community. But it's going to take getting them to realize that we're concerned.
What's the thing that makes you proudest of being a resident of the West End?
Well, see, I have a lot. When I look back on the history of the West End and of Rock Island, I'm proud it has made progress. But there's still a long ways to go in many areas. But I can see the progress of how it has grown in many areas. Because when I come in, even down here in this city, you had to get on the back of the bus. See, and we would ride the bridge line. And we would get on, that's when we had the old American Legion down right off First Street upstairs.
In Davenport.
In Davenport.
Sure.
And the bus run at 12 o'clock at night. That's the last bus that you had to walk. But they didn't close till 1. And so what happened, we had to make it to and go 5 blocks down in order to get a place on the bus. Because other than that, another white group would line up and they would load the bus down and there wasn't no more bus. So what we would do, we would go and get on the bus and take up the seats. And they said, y'all got to get in the back. But they ain't getting nowhere. We know it at midnight. And police all out somewhere else. And see, and I know you can't call them. They didn't have all that connection, communication like they got now.
Right.
They could sit on the bus and call the police. But we would do that, and then when we would get off the bus, they had a Hispanic guy was supposed to be in there, a guy on the bus keeping order. So he would make us stay at the back as far as we could. And as soon as we crossed the line, come across the Arsenal Bridge, then it was enough of on there, we started moving forward. And we know if we can ever make it down to the courthouse on 15th Street, where it turned to go back, then we would have it set up, we'd whoop his head and just fly. And they couldn't catch us because we all knew, never run together.
Different directions.
We went all different directions. And the police, and soon he knew every one of us. He knew Tom Bland, he knew me, he knew all of Gilmore, he knew all of them. And soon as I get in the house, I wouldn't turn on no light out. Because Ed Houston was the black policeman. He was on. He was on. I would go in, and after a while, the light go across my door. I'm laying in the floor, sweating, you know. But it was some time. It was good times, and we had our mischief. But our parents, they tight on us because I had to supposed to be in by 12 during the week. I don't care how grown I got, 12 o'clock. And so I had my sister to work it from the inside. So I tell her, now I'm gonna be out tonight, and you can be out next time. So open the coal bin window, and I'll drop in through the coal bin and come on in. I won't.
You know we're getting all this on tape.
That's all right, but that's why I told my kids, you can't trick me.
That's right.
I done went through it.
Yeah.
Dropped in the coal. One day she didn't open it. She went to sleep, waiting for them to go to bed. She went to sleep, and didn't open the window. And I had to come up and I was running around the house. Hey, dog. And after a while, Mom said, who is that calling? Lord, I could have went through the ground. Junior? Yeah, Mom. What are you doing out there at 2 o'clock? Oh, Lord, I just broke out in the cold sweat. Walked in there, Daddy's standing there.
Yeah.
I said, well, Dad, I don't know. I just stayed out of the girl. Well, you're going to have to take care of that tomorrow. And anytime they promise you a whooping down,
You got it.
you got it. You got it.
Memory was real
good. And I get up trying to sweet talk her. Tell her, yeah, she just talking, just happy. Yeah, get to. Well, Junior, come on in here. Oh, what? Come on in here.
You know what it was, I think, because that's the way it was in my house. It was the anticipation hurt more than the whip.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They made you wait a little while, see?
And brought me on in, but they worked on me in. But I'm grateful that they did. And that's why I say we need to hold our children in check. Sometimes you have to whoop them. And I'm sick and tired of them talking about every time you whoop a child, it's abuse. It's not abuse. It's correcting that child. And if more of us did that, there'd be less of them downtown, you see. But we done downtown and scared. If your mama whooped you, call 911. Well, my grandson did that to my daughter last summer. She said, because he's a slow reader, she was having him read so much every day. One day he didn't read. She said, well, I'm going to whoop you, He run out the back door and said, you can't whoop me. You can't whoop me. And you can't whoop me. You ain't going to whoop me no more. And she started crying, said, because I'll call 911. I said, well, I'll tell you what, tomorrow, send him over the house. So he come over about 8 o'clock, and I went out on the steps and sat down. He come and said, how you doing, son? He said, oh, I'm doing all right, Grandpa. I said, good. I said, I hear you know how to use a telephone. He said, what? I said, I hear you know how to use a telephone. Yeah, I said, I hear you even down told somebody you're going to call 911 if they whoop you again. He started breathing hard. I said, well, I'm going to tell you something. I'm not going to whoop you now. But the next time you tell your mama that over your house, call 911 and tell them to meet you over here. And I'll whoop you in the police arm. But I might well go to jail for you now, Doc. Let's go later. I said, did you hear me? I said, did you hear me? He said, yes, sir, yeah. I said, all right. So now every time I see him, I said, Doc, have you called that number yet? He said, no, bro. I ain't gonna call it. But see, somewhere we got to head our children off. That the world don't dictate to us how we raise them. Because they're telling our children, they can do anything and we better not touch them. But I feel strong, I'll go to jail for mine. I pay the fine. Because I'm going before the judge and I'm going to tell him what I did. And I'm going to make a public issue out of it. If you let me raise him, he will not be down here when he gets grown. But if you're going to raise him, take him now. Don't need him. It's just that plain. So that's where my children grew up. My children right today, if they come home, they know at 12 o'clock they can't be out and turn that same key. Because I don't want everybody coming in at midnight. That's my rules at home. I told nobody gets growner than me. When Deborah was married first time when she got a divorce, she come back home. She was there 3 days. She said, Dad, I won't be here long. I said, that's your business. But every one of them left home before they got married. Because they thought they was grown. But I said, nobody grows up here. It's 12 o'clock, be in the house.
Let me ask you a question, though. Do you have a coal bin window in your
No, I don't. My window is all block glass. Ain't no coal bin.
You headed them off.
my bedroom was right above the front door. And every time it opened and closed, I heard it say, boom.
That's what's called planning. See? That's that thing you can't pull the wool over my eyes. Reverend Barber, thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Get out here this meeting.
Okay. Bye-bye.
See you. You guys have a good day.
We will.
All right.
You can start.
Oh, that's all right. What's up, Matt? You here?
Okay, like I was telling him, I want to mention something about the Dred Scott, what happened here in the Buffalo Soldiers.
Sure.
I got something new to tell you too.
Okay.
Okay, don't say nothing.
Okay, why don't we start with your introducing yourself, Virgil, and just giving us a little background, family history, how long you've been here, and then we can get into some specifics.
Okay. Anytime?
Is
Is it rolling?
It's rolling.
Okay. My name is Virgil Mayberry. This is my daughter, my baby daughter, Mia Mayberry. I'm 49 years old. She's 5 years old. Would you like to tell them what school you go to and what grade you're in?
First ma'am,
What grade are you in?
kindergarten,
Who's your teacher?
Miss Phil.
Do you like it at school there?
Yeah.
You better. Okay. I came to the Quad Cities in 1965 by way of Chicago trade school called Allied Institute of Technology. I got a job 3 days after coming to the Quad Cities on the old Rock Island Line railroad that used to come back and forth. My sister was here. Her name was Reba Mayberry Pilgrim. She worked down at City Hall at the time. Like I say, I got a job at John Deere a couple days within coming here and started working third shift. Like most people, you had to work off shift, and I worked for Fairbanks Morris division of Coat Industries during the day as engineering drafting technologist, and John Deere as a quality control inspector on third shift. So you could get a job then just walking in the door. Jobs were so plentiful, some people worked in every factory here. They'd get fired or quit and just go to another one.
Next one.
But I guess I was kind of fortunate. When I found the job, I stayed with it. So in October 27th of this year, 1995, I'll have 30 years in at John Deere, and I'll be eligible to retire.
You'll be joining me then.
Yeah, I'm semi-retired now. I'll be fully retired, then I'll join you. We play cards all the time.
Okay, Virgil, I know that you have, I guess maybe we call your avocation is really related to history, and you're a collector of black memorabilia. I mean, you're very, very, in addition to that, very, very active in the community, in particular the African American community. What was your affinity? What was your reason for becoming involved or interested in history?
Well, I guess my mother started me off approximately 30 years ago. She gave me a book, The Souls of Black Folks by W.E.B. Du Bois, and I never really read the book. You know how people will give you things and you kind of put it down as there. Well, I guess she planted the seed, and over the years, you know, you pick it up and you read something and it sticks with you, you read something else. And over the years, I would see black artifacts or black pieces, and I would buy them, and I really didn't know why I bought them. You know, in most instances, I didn't even like them, because 99% of the black things that were made were derogatory. But there was something about them. I knew it was a part of me, it was a part of our history, so I'd buy them, and, you know, you accumulate a collection after a while, and right now I've got over 10,000 pieces of black memorabilia. Willie came by the house today, and it's just everywhere.
Well, you also took some of that and you had, I think you changed it at least twice, but a display during Black History Month out of Blackhawk College this past year, which was really interesting. Part of the theme of this West Side celebration is the history, the culture, the heritage of the West Side. What kinds of pieces or what kind of information have you been able to find and develop about the West Side of Rock Island?
Well, it seems like the more I look, the more I find. The main emphasis of the history around us right now is like Tim Moore, the Kingfish, who was prominent in black and white TV years ago, who, if it hadn't been for him, we probably wouldn't have Bill Cosby today, Michael Jackson, because this was the crawling stage for black actors. A lot of people don't realize it, but the Amos and Andy show, when it was first started, were white-face minstrels, okay, on radio. Then when it came time for television, people had in their minds that these were black people because they used that voice in that. So you couldn't put this type thing on television, so they went out and hired, people like Tim Moore and the others for the television program. And, this is someone that, it was very prominent in acting in vaudeville and that, and, he's a homie. He's walking distance from where we're sitting right now, and his family's still there, and his family, Shellie Guy, is carrying on a lot of the tradition with her tribal poets and that.
What did you find out though about 9th Street? Was there a lot of information available about?
Yes, I went to the libraries, and you know they've got this stuff on microfilm and microfiche, and the majority, almost all, of the history of 9th Street was derogatory. Okay, it was this person got shot, this person got killed, you know, these bad things that happened on 9th Street, and it's almost the same way today in Rock Island. A lot of things haven't changed. If you go and look at the news articles, when you look at these black people that were in the Argus, because the Argus has been here for over 100 years, these people are in handcuffs, are on stretchers being carried away or whatever, and to a great extent it's the same way. But you know, there wasn't anything really good printed in the paper, and there were good things about 9th Street, but it never made the newspapers.
Have you been able to find anything of value as you have been looking, though, about, generally speaking, this area that perhaps individuals don't know historically?
Yes, I've been working on the military aspect of it, because the Rock Island Arsenal and Savannah Depot and different places that brought people through here. Galesburg was also a big place as far as during the war. And what I found recently, I found 6 Buffalo soldiers that are buried at the Rock Island Arsenal. Now, I'm going to do some more research on them, because these people have common names like Lau and Harris and Lee, people that we know today that are still living here. So these are probably relations that are here now that were related, you know, to these people from years ago. So I found 6, and I'm sure there's more than that, but this past week I found 6 Buffalo soldiers from the 9th and 10th Cavalry that were very important in history. A lot of people don't realize the Buffalo soldiers opened up the West for most of the pioneers, because they could deal with the Native Americans, whereas a lot of the white scouts and troops, they either couldn't or didn't want to, you know. So that's very important. Then the 108th Infantry that were the guards at the Rock Island Arsenal during the Civil War. They guarded the prisoners of war from the South, okay, that were brought here, because the Arsenal at that time was a prison camp. Okay, they came here, and they came from Tennessee and Kentucky, and they guarded these people, you know, and all of them in the 108 were black, except for the officers. The officers were white. Well, when they left here, they went back to Kentucky and Tennessee, and they were mustered out there. But because they had lived here in the Quad City area, and this was like free territory, more so than Kentucky and Tennessee, these had been slave states, they knew that they had more opportunity to come back here and have a better life. So this is how a lot of the families, black families that we have today, like the Moore family and Shellie Guy's family, I have helped her trace back to her ancestors that were in the 108th Infantry that went back, left Tennessee, Kentucky, moved back here, and moved right across the street from here, yeah.
One other gentleman who has some roots and connections to the Quad City area is, and who was involved in a very historical event is Dred Scott. Do you have any information on his?
Yes, I did some research here and in St. Louis. The courthouse that the case actually took place in, St. Louis, has been turned into a historical marker, okay? And you can go there and you can see the gallery, and they have paperwork there about the case. But the actual case history of the Dred Scott situation took place at the Arsenal and Rock Island, Devonport. Like Dr. John Emerson brought Dred Scott here from Missouri, which was slave territory. This was free territory. Dr. Emerson was a surgeon for the military. He had been transferred here. Dred Scott came here not only as his slave, but as an assistant. Whenever he operated on people, and that Dred Scott assisted in these operations, he did whatever he was told, okay? He was a slave. Well, coming here, Dr. Emerson was like upper crust aristocrat. He dealt with Antoine LeClaire, Colonel Davenport, all of these people and these names of streets and towns that we look at today, these were named after these people during that period of time. And he speculated in land, Dr. Emerson did. He bought 200 acres of land in Bettendorf where you cross the 74 bridge. If you get off the first exit there on State Street, there where the flag and the cannon is, and right now the parking lot for the casino, this was the 200 acres of land that Dr. Emerson bought. And on this 200 acres of land, he put Dred Scott, and Dred Scott built a log cabin, and he farmed and raised different products there, and they sold them and bartered with them because he was at the arsenal on a regular basis every day with the soldiers there. He had to find something for Dred Scott to do, you know, to keep him busy. Now, Dr. Emerson's home, which was a brick, almost like a mansion, was on the site at like 316 East 2nd Street, downtown Davenport. And on the building there, there's an Intercoastal Energy company that's there now. It has a sign there that says on this site in approximately 1857, John Emerson built his homestead here, and he was the owner of the famous slave Dred Scott. But he lived there, and Dred Scott actually lived in what is Bettendorf, and I guess we could consider him the first black, you know, citizen or person, because that was part of his decision. Black people were not considered citizens, and a lot of people don't know how that decision came down, but they left here and went to Fort Snelling in Minnesota. They stayed here approximately 3 to 4 years at the arsenal. They left here, and there Dred Scott met a lady by the name of Elizabeth Robinson, who was also a slave that was owned by another military officer. And John Emerson bought her from him, and then Dred Scott married her, okay? And from that relationship, they had 2 daughters. Okay, they stayed there for 2 or 3 years, then they came back to the Rock Island Arsenal, stayed here another 2 or 3 years. All total, Dred Scott was in what is considered free territory, Minnesota and Illinois territory, for 11 years. And at the end of this time, Dr. Emerson died. Well, his wife never came here because this was frontier, okay? And she was kind of a high society lady.
Dr. Emerson's wife.
His wife, right. So she was a Quaker, and the Quakers did not believe in slavery. They were abolitionists, okay? So when he died, she assumed all his property. Well, she didn't want to have anything to do with any slaves, him, his wife, or the kids. So she gave him to her brother, and his name was John Sanford. Okay, John Sanford, being a Quaker also, he didn't really want to have anything to do with it. So he gave them their freedom. Well, the first thing they did when they got their freedom, they go back to Missouri. Okay, Missouri slave territory. A black person in 1857 walking around talking about they're free, you know, you're begging for trouble. Well, that's what happened. They said, no, you're in Missouri, you are black, you're going to belong to somebody. So he got arrested, and his family. And they went to court, and the Missouri court ruled that because they had been here for 11 years, that they were free. The first decision came down, the state court said, you're free. It went to the Court of Appeals, and they overturned it and said, no, you're slaves. And then eventually it went to the Supreme Court of the United States. Well, these people were politicians, okay, just like the Supreme Court we have of today. Okay, so they walk, you know, the line, the pin, you know, that fence. They try to keep everybody happy and not step on their toes. Well, the Chief Justice was Roger Taney. He ruled, and the majority rule was that they have no rights. He didn't rule that he was still a slave or wasn't. They ruled that the Constitution of the United States, when it was wrote, said that this was for white males. See, women didn't even have any rights. So if you are not a citizen, if you are not a human being, you cannot take this type of action to court. It's just like at that time, a horse or a dog or a cow taking something to court. So this is the way he ruled. And people said, well, you know, we're looking at these people. We know they're human beings. You know, they can walk, they can talk, they can read, they can write. They are human beings. But he said, no.
In the eyes of the law and in the eyes of the Constitution. That's
He
not
said,
the case.
this Constitution was not wrote for them. This was wrote for white men, period. So these people have no rights whatsoever. It should never even went to court the first time.
So in essence, did that have then an effect on the land that was actually in the name of Dred Scott? Wasn't that land in Bettendorf or wherever?
No, that was Dr. Emerson's
That was
land.
Dr. Emerson's land.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was in his wife's name.
Yeah, because I thought the initial action was based on the fact that he filed a suit because Dr. Emerson had listed him on the land, that he was a landowner, and that was the reason why they thought perhaps that the courts would rule that he was a free man. But then, as you explained,
No,
it didn't make any
he was
difference.
listed with the land.
I see.
You know, just like so many
As a piece
cattle
of
property. Yeah.
I see. You know, this is the first West Side celebration, and we're doing a number of things related to history. But you know, I'm just your thoughts on the West Side celebration, and not necessarily how successful it's been, but just simply an activity to bring a community together. What are some of your thoughts?
Well, you know, you and I have dealt with it, and we've thought about it, how it would turn out, and I feel that it's turned out a lot greater than I anticipated, and I'm really happy about it, and I know that we should continue it, because like we're sitting here right now, if our ancestors are the people that had been here 50 years ago, or 20 years ago, or especially 100 or 150 years ago, had did the things that we're doing here today, to preserve things for history, things will be a whole lot different in the future. But nobody ever really did that. That's why our work, Liz's work, and yours and mine, you know, we've scratched our head, and we've went here, and we've got this, and we've tried to get this, that, and the other, and it's been difficult because we've been doing almost the impossible. You know, nobody in the history of Rock Island's ever did what we've done, and you know, we've did a great deal in the little time that we've got together.
It's been difficult and somewhat frightening when you really start to think about the hundreds of years presence of African Americans in the whole Quad City area, but in the west end of Rock Island, and the relatively little information in the institutional places where that's supposed to be about the West End. And that's not necessarily to say that it's not there because it is now an predominantly African American area. There is and was a prominent Jewish and Belgian and Polish representation here, but these people were recent immigrants,
Right.
and still were not a part of the mainstream of the life in Rock Island. So, if nothing else, I'm getting a lot of information on, and to me, history's real purpose is to let you know where you've been, so you know where you are, and you can have an idea of where you're going. And that's right. You know, this has really been a good experience to do that, I think.
Yeah, I believe, you know, what we've done is for her generation and the generations to come. You know, one day they'll be able to sit down and read something or put something in a tape player and say, well, hey, this is what was going on in 1995. Because, you know, chances are we ain't going to be here another 40, 50 years. But just think of those people that were here before us, if they had left better footprints or tracks in the sand, you know, how easier it would have been for us. You know, we've had to scrape and scar and everything else. So, you know, by what we've done this time, it's easier. And, you know, we're planning on doing it next year and every year. I foretell that there will be a lot more information that we will find that might even astound us. Because this was the crossroads of the United States. You know, St. Louis was too, but the Quad Cities was. And there were a lot of people that came through here that we don't even know about, that I believe that we will find out about as we start digging into it. I know some people today were saying that, I think it was the Clay Boy Clay young man, I call him boy because he's the same age as my son, that he was saying he seen, I think it was his grandfather or someone in his family with some famous musician and that in
Muddy
his
Waters.
Muddy Waters, and he said, you know, he's looking at it and it's just gassing him because he never knew this, you know, and the people that came through, these are some of the reactions they've had today, you know how they look at some of these older pictures and they see themselves because this is their blood.
Right.
You know, this is their relations that they're
didn't
seeing.
realize it.
And they just didn't realize that these people at their time, they were doing good things. You know, you look at the sports, some of the, you know, the track teams and, you know, some of the musicians and that. And, you know, we've heard the stories about Nat King Cole and Louis Armstrong. They weren't allowed, you know, in these hotels here. They broke the color line at, I think it was the Harper House or the Gay 90s, Fort Armstrong. Before that, they had to stay in our relatives' homes when they came to the Quad Cities. So, you know, there's stories and things that are there. And I'm glad that the nursing home, Rock Island County Nursing Home, brought these people here today too, because I'm sure some of these people, they've got some stories to tell too.
And they're stories that they've lived or people close to them have lived.
That's right.
That makes it even more important, I think.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts about today or?
Well, I just think that it's wonderful. I'm glad that, you know, we had the insight to get this together, you know, because it's been talked about. You know, me and Liz have known each other for, what, 30 years, and, you know, we've sit in this room here with people that have passed away, like Yamel,
Real Stewart.
Oh, yeah.
John Williams.
John Williams, Friel Stewart.
Paul Halpern, which is
yeah,
happened two
and,
years ago.
you know, we've talked about things and never did them, and now we're fulfilling some of these things, and, you know, you have to do them. Because if you don't, if you just talk about them, they don't get done. You know, but now we're doing them, and I've talked to some other people that have said, well, hey, you know, I'd like to help on it next year or whenever. You know, I want to be a part of this because this is my family, you know, and they didn't realize how important their families were. And, you know, these younger generations need to be able to see that the black community not only was important, is important. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Okay?
Thank you much, Virgil.
You got anything to say?
Just
Say goodbye, folks. Where's your hat?
Like that.
Hey, it's kind of going up. Well, I tell you, I've been in the store a lot. Did we use any more of those
No.
things to put up other than,
We're gonna
well, we
need 'em
used
for
at
next
least
year.
one.
We're gonna need them for next year.
Something
Where? Denver?
Tahiti.
Tahiti.
Okay, are we ready? Okay, why don't we just start off with introductions and just a little bit about the family and your connection or relationship to the West End.
Beauty before age. My name is Liz Sherwin.
Oh, I just get I get now wrong.
Liz Colvin Sherwin. I came to the Quad Cities when I was 10 years old. I came here from Homer, Louisiana. My parents moved here for work, and we moved here in '59. We lived on 7th Avenue between 11th and 12th Street. In our neighborhood, when we moved here, it was mostly white people. There were only 2 black families on the whole block. Consequently, I had a little culture shock because I had moved from an entirely black community to a mostly white community. I attended Irvin, which is now on the site where Hawthorne Irving is, and it was on a hill back then. I'm not sure where the hill went, but Irvin was on a hill because we had to go up about 20 or 30 steps to get to the front door.
Where Hawthorne Irving is
Yes.
now.
And I graduated from Franklin Junior High, and I graduated from Rock Island High School. We grew up, I guess you could say, we kind of grew up on the west side. We knew all the people, everybody. Back then, you knew. We first lived over on 7th Avenue, and the Tiggs and Ronnie and all the super sports stars and stuff, they were in and out of their houses and that sort of thing, and that's where we probably developed our first crushes on boys or noticed the opposite sex. later on, we moved over on 9th Avenue, and Willie Seward's uncle, Robert Jones, used to babysit us. He was our babysitter. It was like we're like a family. It was like 3 houses of us. There was his Aunt Clara, and then there was Maddie and Willie, and then there was all of us. And
How
some
many
of
are
us
all
were
of us?
pretty.
How many?
There was, I was the oldest of 4 more. I had 7 sisters and brothers, and my older sisters moved here in like the very early 50s with their husbands because they both worked at the arsenal. And they weren't happy with us living in the South, so they kind of encouraged my dad and mom to come up here and look at work. So that's hence how we got here. And I have a sister, Johnny. She's next in line, and I had a brother, Jewel, and a brother, Robert, and a brother, Charles. And we all had nicknames, so it was kind of embarrassing. In the South, everyone has a nickname. But when we came here, people did not have nicknames. So, you know, they kind of made fun of us a little bit because my nickname was Shot, my sister's nickname was Cuda.
Johnny's nickname was
Cuda, yes.
Okay.
And Jules' nickname was Slick, and Charles's nickname was Redmond, and he's not red. And Robert's nickname was Sambo. And my grandfather nicknamed us all. You know, he looked at us and we were 3 or 4 days old, and he gave us a nickname that stuck.
That was it.
So that is the way we're known in the West End. People, if you go up and say Liz Sherwin, a lot of times they won't know who you're talking about. But if you say Shot or Cooter or Sambo or Redmond or Slick, then everybody knows who you're talking about.
That's true.
That's true.
Let's go over here and have you introduce yourself, Shellie.
Okay. My name is Shellie Moore. Guy is my married name, or was my married name, but my maiden name is Moore. My first memory of a commute or a neighborhood was over at Lincoln Homes, because I'm told that my parents moved into an apartment at Lincoln Homes when my mother was pregnant with me, and I was born in 1954. I guess Lincoln Homes maybe went up in 1953. It was fairly new when they moved in. And so I grew up at Lincoln Homes for probably, we were there until I was 9 or 10, and then we moved over to 14th Street and 13th Avenue. But the first 10 years spent in Lincoln Homes, I think, established for me a sense of what community is supposed to be about. What went on when we got to 14th Street and we lived there, and we you know, it was okay. But what really, I think, like I said, established for all of us, my brothers and sisters, a sense of who we were and who we are and who we're connected to, I think happened right over there at Lincoln Homes.
How many brothers and sisters?
I have 3 brothers, Michael, Rodney, and Mark, and I have a sister, Beth Ann.
You had mentioned, your parents?
Mm-hmm. Barbara and Levanza
And
Moore.
Levanza Moore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tell us a little bit about the Moore thing.
Well, the Moore thing is interesting because now from a very early age, I remember that we were always a kind of a close family, and I think maybe I'm thinking that we were closer than we really were, but I think as children we tend to see things a little differently than our parents do. For instance, when I started writing poetry, and I started writing about my memories, and I write a lot about the projects and how special that was. And the first time my mother read a poem or heard me recite a poem about the projects and loving it, and you know, didn't want to leave it and stuff like that, she said, "What?" You know, and I guess I can identify with that now as a parent when my kids talk about not, you know, loving the Arsenal courts, and all I did was try to get them out of there, you know. But as for the Moores, I always felt like we were special, and not that anybody said you're special, you're special, you're special. It was just that there was always a family. There was always this family around us. My uncle Robert seemed to me, and I think to all my sister and my brothers and my cousins, I think that we perceived him to be our grandfather. because
He was the oldest
he was
of
the
your
oldest,
two uncles
right.
on
He
the-
was the oldest child of my father's family. It was my Uncle Robert, it was Uncle Gail, my father, my Aunt Elizabeth, and Aunt Perline. And my grandfather, my father's father, passed away before I was born, and so I didn't know him. And since Uncle Robert was the oldest, I think somehow, and you probably know this, I think they looked to him, and he was the grandfather. He was the older brother, and so we didn't feel a void. I don't think any of us, cousins or anybody, felt a void because he had stepped in. And you could see that my father and my Uncle Gil and everybody else gave him that role. And when I say I felt special, is because there was always this crazy, loud, loving family. I mean, they were nutty. Am I lying? But nutty in the sense that they like to have fun and they made us feel like they made us feel like we belonged to something big.
Tell us about the discovery here that occurred in terms of a little bit of your genealogy and background.
Okay, we were Shellie brought in a picture of a man and a woman last night. Now, the Shellie were these people, and it was your
My great grandfather,
your great grandmother. And she went on to say, well, her father was Charlie Wilson.
Charlie Wilson.
And I said, oh, Shellie, I got all of Charlie's stuff here. And then we were able to put the picture with his story that he dictated to Hallberg back in 1917.
1914.
Was it 1914? Okay, I get dates wrong. But, and I think one thing about today's event, those kinds of things keep cropping up with people, things that they knew or had forgotten, or things that they really didn't know, and they are really astounded that, hey, these are relatives of mine, and these are things that people really did, and they had these places in the West End, and people had a sense of community.
So you knew who your great-grandfather was,
Charlie Wilson.
but you did not know that this piece that he did with John Hallberg.
Well, I had someone gave it to me about a year or two ago. Gave me the book when I told a reporter from the Times, my last name, and somehow or another we found out we were talking about Tim Moore being my great uncle, and this reporter happened to be a Tim Moore buff, and I didn't know that any existed. Outside of the family, and she said, and so if Tim Moore is your uncle, then I know who your grandfather is. And this is a piece of the family history that I never knew. So 2 days later, she came up with this book, and there's this Charlie Wilson sitting in this chair, looking with probably this Bible. And what it is, it's a slave narrative. If you've ever read the slave narrative, it's a slave narrative. And I've read a lot of those, and I've always been fascinated by it. And it was just, it was unbelievable that that someone in my family had actually presented a slave narrative, and it was typed up, and it was legitimate, and all of this, and there was a picture and all this other stuff. When I told my father about Charlie Wilson, we were at a restaurant, this reporter and I said, hold on a second. So I called my dad, and I talked about Uncle Tim and this, that, and the other, and I said, and what happened was Charlie Wilson eventually settled in Port Byron. And Dad said, well, he says, I vaguely remember that, but I remember that when Uncle Art died, all of these half-white people from Port Byron showed up. And so, so things started moving and in place.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was really, really strange.
Let me go back here because there's a question I was going to ask you, Liz. Homer, Louisiana, what is that near?
It's near Shreveport, Louisiana. It's in the north central part of Louisiana.
Monroe?
It's north of Monroe.
North of Monroe.
In Grambling College, northeast of Grambling a little bit.
Looking at what we've done, of course, Liz is the chairperson of the West Side Celebration Committee, and Shellie is on the committee, and of course, in addition to a lot of hard work, what benefits do you think actually accrued today, not necessarily in terms of the committee, but in terms of the west side?
Well, some of the things and I see things in like snaps or in like little whatever. Some of the things I saw was young people and older people talking to each other. You would go by the stands where there were pictures and displays, and you would see some maybe a young lady in her teens talking to an older person, and they were talking about the displays and going over how things used to be and all those kinds of things. I saw like I guess you call it intergenerational type communications going on, that as long as I've had things here at the center and participated in the things, the memorial service, King Center Days, and just all kinds of things that I've seen happen in the community, even in churches and things like that, I've not really ever seen that sort of dialogue going on between, different age groups. And I think that is one of the things that we really wanted to do. We wanted to give our young people a sense of permanency, a sense that we're here, we're going to be here, we're going to improve ourselves, we're going to, just the start for us. And earlier Virgil talked about, the difficulty in even doing it because, there's not really a lot of information in one place. And I talked to Shellie about us getting together and writing a book. Of course, me and Shellie have talked for years about poetry and writing and stuff, and I used to write and do that sort of thing. But I'm lazy. Shellie's a worker. She do that sort of thing. I don't like to sit still, you have to sit still to write and do that. And we talked about those things, and I think that, if Shellie can do the work, the writing and stuff, I can do the talking and organizing things.
That is, that I would have
She got that on
suggested
film,
that
too.
division of labor myself. I would have done that. What about your impressions, Shellie?
I think I really agree with Liz in that, in terms of the intergenerational mix, because we took it for granted that there was going to be that intergeneration. When I was growing up, we knew that was going to happen. Yeah, I mean, it just did. If we said that we were bored when we were younger, we just weren't being creative enough because there were some things to do. When our kids say they're bored and there's nothing to do, they mean it. And we can't tell them they're lying because they don't have those things. They don't have those people that they can go visit and those safety nets. Of course, now my parents are still there and my kids are able to do those things, but they're not. There aren't those. We were talking about those holes that are in our communities now with those fields and this and that. We didn't have that. We didn't have open spaces like that. We had businesses and schools and things like that took up those spaces. Our kids today don't have that. So now we have to be creative and plan that intergenerational mix. And so we're just going to have to do it. So like a day like today fits that purpose for them. The other thing that it did was let the kids know that they share in, and families know that they share in this legacy, that African American people, for instance, weren't dropped here, in 1970 something, just for lack of anything else to do, and we didn't come here without purpose and without a goal.
We didn't come here because the Illinois welfare system was so great.
Brought us here, yeah. And at one time there were people were moving around, and there was a mission here, and that they share in that mission. And personally, my two aunts, family members, were able to come here, and there aren't very many of us left, and they were able to come here and have the time of their lives. They were loving every minute of being able to share their stories.
Well, you know what?
That was a plus.
I think, and I have never thought really long and hard about this, but when I talked to your two aunts,
Because
they had never really had a chance
to tell
to
their story.
tell their story.
Aunt Rosalie was on fire when she left here. Matter of
Yeah,
fact, she was
remember
still
she told
wound
me
up.
that she said, I still want to
She
talk.
still wanted to
Yes.
talk. She
Well,
said
I
that she'd
ended the
never
interview.
ever done
Yeah.
that before, and she was remembering things that she hadn't thought about
Oh,
She
yeah.
said the
for
more she
years.
talked, and she remember she had all kinds of things she was still
Yeah.
coming back
Wanted
to
to
it.
say.
Well, we left the door open, never really had a chance to sit down and say what they
And then,
held very dearly
Right.
and then too,
and
what
wanted to
is so
preserve.
interesting, maybe, you know what, we did something for them that nobody's ever done. You know, we gave them the opportunity. We were interested in what they had to say. And when I look back on Earl Nelson, you know, he fumbled a little bit, but he gave us some real good insight, you know. And how often do people in our community get interviewed by anyone that want to listen to what they say unless it's been a shooting or, you know, or stabbing or, you know, something. So I think this is good and we need to continue to do it. I don't know how we're going to fund this project, but I would like to work with the Illinois Humanities Council and get some money, especially with these oral histories and those displays. You know, get and just improve on it, work on it, and make it into a wonderful thing. We had people that came over from the Davenport Human Rights Commission to see what we're doing. They're looking at something. A guy from the East Moline Human Rights
And
Commission.
at least one Rock Island councilman
Yes.
came.
Yeah, Vern Winters.
City manager was here.
City manager.
City manager.
And the mayor was
The mayor, of
Yeah,
course, was on
yeah.
the program.
So we've had real good response, and I really think that, you know, it's good. And when I look back, well, I've been here for over 30 years. And when I start looking back, I try to get a sense of when I felt less secure in my neighborhood. And the more I think about it, I think it happened when they did urban renewal. When they tore all those houses out, you know, created the Centennial Expressway, took Dinkman Park, you know, took the fountain, the beautiful fountain that was at Dinkman Park, and moved it up to Longview. They never replaced anything in the neighborhood. You know, they took out all the businesses. They said we're going to have a shopping mall. We're going to have this. The King Center was supposed to cover a one-block area with a gymnasium and tennis courts and everything. And I think at that, you know, you lose, you
Hope.
feel you lose hope. You know, and I think that probably if I lost hope, you know, and I still do things and keep striving, you know, what would happen to other people?
Well, you know, it's interesting because I think that has a great deal to do with it, because not only when you lose hope and you don't realize you've lost it,
Yes.
that's what's really
right.
difficult. See, and I think for a lot of our young people, not necessarily because of them being young, but because of the circumstances and situations that they're dealing with, they have lost hope and they don't realize it.
You know, and it's so, I read about 5 or 10 years ago, in communities like this, especially with African American communities, a lot of authors have been talking about how psychologically we haven't recovered.
Right.
And that we have mental health issues that we haven't dealt with. And we didn't know.
Didn't know.
We didn't know, and just like what you were saying, we didn't know. Most of us walk around here, all of us, the most active
all
of
kinds
us,
of
and most
emotional
involved, of us, but one-on-one we'll say things to each other, I don't know why we do the things we do. Well, we really don't. I mean, we can philosophize on this, but psychologically speaking, we don't know the psychological damage that was set in motion 300 or 400 years ago, and we're still playing that out in 1995.
Yes, and we keep
Everything
playing
that's
it out.
happening here today can only, in 1995, can only be happening because of all of that a long time ago, because there's a cause and effect to everything. And so we spend a lot of time trying to figure that out, but at the same time we try to put one foot in front of the other, and you know, and keep trying to plan
you know,
and keep trying to do these things, but then at the same time trying to keep a family intact.
Yes.
Good point.
And watching those kids, and some of them are ours, our own kids, that don't have hope, and not really having all the answers, and knowing even if what's scary to me is that I know that even if I had all the answers, I may not be able to solve for them.
Right.
Because it's not only, it's bigger than me.
And they tell me.
It's bigger than me.
And
Real
my
doubt
kids,
as to whether or not,
It's scary.
yeah, sure.
And my
If you
kids-
eliminate all the dope and you eliminate all of the crime, you eliminate all this stuff, there's still
Yes.
the
That's right.
question are we still going to be accepted? Can we still fit into the system?
And the thing
Will we be allowed to?
allowed.
Right.
My kids, I've been active and involved in things, and so is Shellie. But my kids feel a hopelessness. When I talk to them about things, they go for job interviews, and they say, "Oh, I'm not going to get it. The white person's going to get it." And this is their attitude, or in anything, they feel that, they're going to be on the bottom. And I guess I don't know, maybe I didn't instill something in them that came with me and my family and the way I was brought up, because we were born in the South, but I always felt that our family was important. They were landowners. My grandmother in the South, before the Civil Rights Movement, a street was named after her. Ivory Street, that's where mother's name is.
Really?
And all that sort of thing. So we always have this sense of, hey, we are somebody, we are, and I guess my kids don't have, and we are a close-knit family. I grew up feeling that, it's my family against the world. I can do anything, and I'm going to always have my family there for me, and they have been there for me. And that's the way that I've raised my children, but somehow they're not able to have that sense of belonging that I feel. And that kind of bothers me.
Yeah, I experienced that as a mother
You
also.
do?
Yeah, as a parent, and I've told you how I felt growing up, and this, that, and the other, and my kids are a part of that. They remember my Aunt Clarice. They didn't know my Uncle Robert, but there were still some people there.
Yeah.
My grandmother
My
and
mother and
my
my father
father.
was there for them.
And my father and mother pick up a lot of slack, and they know that, and so they still have those things, those elements.
And I don't know.
But at the same time, and you begin to question your role or your job, your performance as a parent, because but then I look at it, and even with all those things in place, and of course I've made some mistakes because no one's perfect. But even with all those things in place, there was this thing called the world. And they have to go out there.
Yes, they gotta deal with the world.
And the problems that the nation feels trickles down to little cities too. And there are some things that, my goodness, we just don't have any control over.
That's right.
The influences, with television, with media in general, with friends, with what happens to little black kids in schools,
Yes.
that I have no
There's nothing
control
you can
over
say.
when they leave my home, and I can't. I remember when my kids were in elementary school, and we had lived over in Davenport for a little while, and for some reason, because of who I thought I was, this thing that I brought into motherhood,
That's right.
who Shellie Moore is, and and then I had all of that family, who I am as a person. And then it was right after I began to organize, do tenant organizing and those kinds of things. We moved over to Davenport. So with my family identity, my cultural identity, and my identity as a powerful person who could move some people,
Yes.
we moved over to Davenport, and I didn't have a sense that my kids would have to suffer from racism.
Yes.
Naively, I thought that because racism was wrong, and I knew that I could identify it, and I would be able to, I know it sounds stupid, but I would be able to, if racism was encountered with my kids, I would be able to deal with it effectively, since I had some successes somewhere, and I thought that because I would be right, that, right makes might, or whatever that is. And I had the experience of my life over in Davenport, because I had to face the fact that this racism issue was larger than me, that just because I might be right doesn't mean, but what was the most painful thing that I remember about that was that I had to learn that I was not going to be able to fix all these problems for my children before they could be effective. I wanted to get rid of all these things for them before they could be affected and damaged And I remember going through about 2 weeks of an emotional depression. Just 2 weeks, and I allowed myself 2 weeks. I remember that. I was working with United Neighbors, and I knew what I was doing. It was. I think I was going through this transition. I had to accept the fact that me by myself was not going to be able to eliminate racism for my children in their time.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's tough.
That was a blow.
Yeah. Let me move from there. Are we going to do this again next year?
Most certainly, yes. And we're going to start organizing probably in late fall to pull things together. The committee that was working with the Barbers on doing that reunion they were talking about, she gave me a card and she wanted to join with us.
Yeah.
And I hope that, just so you know that I'll come back.
From Tahiti?
Yeah. I hope
Are you
that in
serious
some
about
way.
going to Tahiti?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay, let me try it.
I tried, they won't give me a passport, that's what's not. But I think we have an opportunity here to combine not only the things that we've talked about here on the tape today, but also utilizing this event to bring some people home.
That's right.
Who want to come home, and who I think can also help us deal with the kinds of problems
Especially
we have in
some of the
West
people
End.
that have left would be excellent role models for our children.
Role models, I can see people coming in and having as a part of this some kind of a workshop.
Yeah.
With some folks from around the country that came from this area and that kind of thing. So, okay.
I wanted to say that I attended a conference in Phoenix and Tucson in February about using storytelling and poetry and stories like you did here today to help empower communities. And so I mean it's new, but we're right here on the cutting edge of some things that are real. And there's a heavy Indian or Native American population out there, and so consequently at this conference there were, and they are already using this tradition.
It's their history. This is the oral
they were
history.
planning
Yes.
week-long events where in the evening the elders, and this is what they called them, the elders would come in every night at 7 o'clock, and they would have a storytelling thing. And it was centered around some other activities like this, but it was all geared toward empowering families and continuing traditions. So
Makes a lot
we
of
could do
sense.
those things.
Now, one other thing that I heard today was in connection with something like this, possibly doing more with the children.
Yes.
Because it seemed like they kept bringing up how they used to do things for the children, baseball teams, all these
Right,
kinds of things,
right.
and everybody would come and watch the children
Right.
Yeah.
perform.
Right.
If there was some kind of activity with this, that everybody got to come and see their children do this activity.
Or that it wouldn't end, that the opportunity to help move kids into positive kinds of activities would not just simply end today,
Right.
start and end. It would start
Maybe
and
we
there'd
could
be
use some
Right.
ideas that we
continuation.
gathered to
Right.
go back into the community and try
Right.
to see that these things happen.
Right.
I would even like to see one time before the summer ends, and I know the King Center does their King Center days in September, and I know
They're
that
doing it August 5th or
August 5th.
15th. No.
you know, hopefully we can start a tradition here of these types of things. We don't have to do anything real big, and I know it was a lot of work, but I'm saying this was a peaceful, calm day for people. I think everybody felt at peace, and if we could do these types of things where people just come in fellowship,
Yeah.
listen to some music, do whatever we needed to do and
Talk.
talk,
You know, talk. And there's been a lot of talking.
so that it won't be a special event anymore. It'll be something that's commonplace.
Ongoing, yeah. Thank you, folks.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you, Willie. You did an
You
excellent
guys
job.
are to
Willie.
be commended,
Thank you.
but you can't get Barbara Moore. You ain't that good. Please, but yeah.
Johnny's?
Who you talking about, these things here? You want these?
Willie, is that all this stuff over here?
No, I'm just doing the.
That's mine. Dad's father. This is Dad, the bad boy. Gail. This is Uncle Harry and Uncle Jim. Holland. This is Uncle Robert. Chuck Norris. Uncle Jim's back here. This is Chuck Norris. Uncle Harry and Jim. Yeah, I got the original. That's Dad. Well, I knew this one. Yeah, this is and this third one. You got all these. But I don't have this. Well, I might, wait a minute. Let me look at my bag. I got some copies. I took some copies home. You just got it. That's not mine. It came out your bag. Okay, now Liz, I need a copy of that. That's not my original. That's Chuck Norris.
That's what I was doing, trying to figure out you here.
Which I'm going to have to get a copy of it.
You want a copy of the copy? Well, you just keep going.
No, I mean a copy of the photo. I don't mean a Xerox.
Oh, you want the photo?
Yeah. I don't think my dad has that.
I was looking at this one.
And you know, these always...
Somebody needs to help me take
That's why I'm proud of that.
You done? What?
Well, wait a minute. He's taping there.
Paper money?
Yeah. You just lay it back out here, but...
This one?
Yeah, you're finished with that. Yeah. What?
You can keep your family.
My
Oh, this one must have changed down, so they really hooked this one tight.
Yeah, had to go behind there. It is big. Finally made